Yo, 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 yo! What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman?
Mr. Weedman?
How the hell are you?
Doing great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you're doing great. I'm doing great. You want to know why?
Why?
Because we're about to get normal. Hopefully everybody out there in the world is smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. And we're going to smoke some peanut butter breath grown by our good friend Big Earl.
Yay.
Super stoked. Love this strain. Love it, love it, love it, love it. If you can find this strain anywhere, I suggest that you smoke it. It is so mellow and so nice and so wonderfully body fulfilling, but also mental clarity. It also helps you think, also helps you stay clear. So I really, really do like this strain. So as soon as Mrs. Weedman passes that bowl over, we're going to talk about Succession.
Oh.
So
I realized I gave a big spoiler last week. Sorry about that, people. If I ruined your watching, I'm sorry. But yeah, it wrapped up. And it's not even that it was predictable or not predictable. It really wasn't predictable.
Not at all.
And
so just so you know,
it's just interesting.
It's the
very
final
interesting.
episode. It was the
Yeah,
final episode of the season and of the whole
the
entire
whole series.
The whole thing. It's over. And I really didn't know how they were going to conclude everything in the hour and 30-something minutes for the final episode. But they did a good job.
They did.
It was phenomenal what took place. They really made you think the family was going to come together.
Don't go there.
It's
anywhere.
okay. And do this thing.
Maybe
That's all
they
I'm going to
did.
say.
Maybe they did.
Maybe they didn't.
Maybe they didn't.
Maybe they just are spoiled
Maybe you gotta
brats.
watch it and see for yourself. It's
So,
good.
It's really good.
It's really, really
Phenomenal episode. They did a killer job ending it the way they ended it. And I don't have to say poor Tom anymore.
good. Yay. Oh, there was really never poor Tom.
I know.
Poor Tom knew what he was doing.
I know. He knew exactly what he was doing the whole time.
Yeah.
He's not my favorite character on the show. He's just the guy that gets abused all the time. So, but he's very smart.
Well, his own wife said, Tom would suck the biggest dick in the room if it would get him ahead. So there's Tom for you.
There's time for you.
From his wife.
Still my favorite character is Romulus. He killed it again at that ending. Oh my gosh. Just amazing. The best drink of his life. That's all I have to say. You have to watch it to figure out what I'm talking about at that moment.
It was good.
It was good. So our poor dog Yuki once again.
Oh my gosh, this dog. She's not even clumsy. She's just prone to problems.
Yes. So we had a phenomenal Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully everybody else did out there. We were at our sister-in-law's house. They have a pool, but they have a lot of stone around the whole entire property. Rocks, rock steps. There was another German Shepherd there, which is like her boyfriend.
He's huge.
And then it was
so cute.
3 other dogs there, and it was just all of them having fun, jumping in and out of the pool, running around. They all started running around, and they ran up the cobblestone steps, and they're pretty sharp because I banged my toe on one of them one time, and she cut the pad of one of her toes off, and blood was everywhere.
Yeah, it was like, uh-oh, we got a problem.
So she is a limpy girl right now, and she's all bandaged up. It looks kind of funny, but she is doing fine. She's a very good patient.
She is. She lets us fix up her wounds.
Yes.
She's sweet. She just puts her paw out. She's so sad about it.
Yeah, everybody throw a little shout out to Yuki
Poor
out there.
Yuki.
Poor Yuki girl.
We are really responsible pet owners. Probably a little over the top.
No, I don't think so. I think we're just good
maybe
pet
a little
owners.
bit of helicopter parenting. And this dog just
keeps on
getting
going.
it. Yeah.
Keeps going.
Well, of course she keeps going, but she keeps having these little setbacks. She'll be all right.
She will.
When she gets to 2, I swear, nothing else.
Yeah.
Because we've had 2 dogs while we've been together, and they both lived really long lives that were really uneventful. We talk about this all the time. We were never at the vet other than shots and dental stuff, right?
That's it.
They just didn't have issues. So she's our little fussy dog.
Yes. But she's our Yuki girl.
But she's good. She's worth it. She's worth it. She'll get better.
She will. Anything else?
No.
No?
I don't think so.
Let's get the show started then. Which terpenes enhance the cannabis high? 10 years ago, most cannabis consumers couldn't tell you a terpene from a cannabinoid, but today things are a lot different. Cannabis flower is categorized according to terpene profile. Product manufacturers add terpene blends back into edibles and concentrates. Limonene is practically a household name. Lemon pledge. So, and for good reason, terpenes impart desirable flavors and aromas, and they appear to be good for the body as well. Now it turns out that some terpenes also may contribute to the cannabis high. A 2021 study by the University of Arizona scientists concluded that certain terpenes are cannabimimetic in a mouse model of cannabis intoxication and can selectively enhance cannabinoid activity. At this month comes a brand new paper in the Journal of Biochemical Pharmacology by an Israeli researcher who report that 3 cannabis terpenes at concentrations similar to those found in actual cannabis plants significantly boost THC signaling at the CB1 receptor. CB1 activation. Using an in vitro cellular model, the Israeli team compared CB1 receptor activation by 16 different cannabis terpenes to that of THC alone and to THC terpene blends with a botanically relevant ratio of 10:1. When tested individually, all 16 terpenes activated the CB1 at about 10 to 50% of activation of the THC alone. This is notable in and of itself through a huge surprise. While their chemical structures differ quite a bit, terpenes and cannabinoids share features both belonging to a larger group of plant compounds called terpenoids. In fact, cannabinoids are technically classified as terpenophenolic substances or phenolic substances. Varying responses. Next, the researchers tested terpenes and THC together. When they found runs the gamut. In the case of beta-pinene and grananol, the mixtures actually produced a smaller effect than some of the individual parts, as these terpenes negated some of the THC activity. For 8 of the THC terpene blends, including some of the most common cannabis terpenes, alpha-pinene, beta-carotene, bisabol, eucalyptol, humulene, myrcene, my fave, nirodolol, and terpinolene, CB1 activation equaled that of THC alone. The presence of terpenes seemed to make no difference. A 2021 study reports that some terpenes are cannabimimetic and can enhance cannabinoid activity. But with 3 other terpenes, THC blends, linalool, ocimene, and terpenol, the researchers observed an addictive effect, meaning the CB1 activity equaled the sum observed with THC and the terpenes separately. In other words, if the terpene was a 3 and THC was a 7, the blend was a 10. Finally, 3 of the terpenes, limonene, boronol, and saponine, produce a synergistic effect in the combination with THC. In these cases, the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, and 11 or 12 rather than an expected 10. Wow, that's crazy. THC terpene synergies. The researchers considered the latter point their most significant findings. It represents the first demonstration of the THC terpene synergism in the in vitro controlled setting and lends the paper its title. Selected cannabis terpenes synergize with THC to produce increased CB1 receptor activation. Is the evidence of the fabled cannabis entourage effect? Strictly speaking, no. According to the paper's authors, they note that the term entourage effect, as originally coined in the 1998 article in the European Journal of Pharmacology, refers to cases where compounds that don't directly bind to the CB1 or CB2 receptors nonetheless boost the activity of the endocannabinoid system. Since terpenes do activate CB1, this doesn't fit with the original concept of the entourage effect. Wow. Given that cannabis terpenes demonstrate direct agonism at CB1 receptor, the authors contended THC terpene effects are beyond the classical definition of entourage. Bum, bum, bum. Therapeutic applications. Semantics aside, The paper fundamentally findings around THC terpene interactions at ratios similar to those in the cannabis plant and at very low terpene concentrations could have significantly implications for both future research and real-world cannabis use. The simple fact that different terpenes can modify THC activity in different ways seems worth of attention of its own, but the authors put particular emphasis on their discovery of the synergistic effect for limonene, boronol, and saponine. While limonene is among the most common cannabis terpenes, boronol is less so, and saponine is even rarer still. I want those two. As a result, they suggest that these terpenes could be intentionally added to cannabis extracts to maximize effectiveness of their THC content. The use of selected terpenes may enable reducing the THC dose in some treatments, and as a result, potentially minimize the THC-related adverse effects, they concluded. This would also help in adjusting the treatment to more sensitive populations such as children and the elderly. The authors continue, enrichment with selected terpenes may allow for composition adjustment to personal needs and to change during chronic use, such as for daytime versus for sleep. Of course, these statements are speculative and not necessarily supported by clinical research. They also smack a bit of the marketing speak, which is not surprising given that 4 of the authors are employed by this company called Basilit Group, a medical cannabis manufacturer in Israel that boasts of using a breakthrough technology to formulate specific desired cannabinoid terpene formulations to supply enhanced therapeutic effect in various medical conditions. As I say again, bum, bum, bum. As always in cannabis science, the real world is far more complex than the lab, and preclinical findings don't always translate into lived experiences. But at the very least, the study provides further evidence of interactions between terpenes, cannabinoids, and the endocannabinoid system, something Project CBD will explore further in more articles and on beta-caryophyllene they call the super terpene. So the truth is, this could be true, some of these studies. More research needs to be done. Could have been a marketing ploy by this Basilit Group, probably. But I thought it was interesting that it did come out of the University of the newspaper in the Journal of Biochemical Pharmacology. The one before that, though, Arizona University of Arizona scientists. So the studies still have to come out more and more, but like I said, it's very interesting. Mm-hmm. So, COPD, smoking pot is not linked, kind of.
Yep. New study. Smoking pot not linked with COPD. Findings via researchers at UCLA. Pretty cool. Smoking cannabis is not associated with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, according to a newly released study. Researchers from the University of California, Los Angeles examined participants who smoke or who have smoked tobacco cigarettes and divided them into 3 groups: current smokers, former smokers, and never pot smokers. So, to clarify, they take the tobacco smokers and divide them into groups of pot smokers as current cannabis consumer, former cannabis consumer, and a never cannabis consumer. That wasn't really clear. All right. The authors of the study said that limited data is available regarding cannabis's impact on development or progression of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, in middle-aged or older adults with a variable history of tobacco cigarette smoking. We compared current cannabis smokers, former cannabis smokers, and never cannabis smokers, plus those with varying amounts of lifetime use. Mixed effect linear regression models were used to analyze changes in symptoms, health status, and more, the research team wrote. Most participants were followed for 4 years or more, according to the researchers. In their concluding analysis, the researchers wrote, in a cohort of tobacco smokers of less than 20 pack years with established COPD or at risk of developing COPD, followed over an average of more than 4 years, a history of current and or former smoking of cannabis, of any cumulative lifetime amount was not found to be associated with a significantly detrimental impact on progression of COPD. Whew. Among tobacco smokers in the same cohort without COPD at enrollment, self-reported current and or former cannabis smoking, including heavy cannabis smoking, was not found to be associated with the increased risk of subsequently developing COPD.
COPD.
That's huge. However, in view of our study's limitations and of previous published findings that conflict with our results, additional studies with a larger sample size and longer duration of follow-up that are specifically designed to evaluate this issue are needed for a better understanding of potential long-term effects of cannabis smoking in persons with or at risk of developing COPD. Normal's deputy director, Paul Armentano, touted the findings from the UCLA study. He, quote, said, "These results are consistent with decades worth of data findings that cannabis smoke exposure is not associated with the same sort of harmful pulmonary impact as is tobacco smoke exposure," Armentano said. The results should be reassuring to cannabis consumers and to health professionals alike, and they should help to guide future policies with respect to the crafting of evidence-based public health messages and associated regulations. Normal noted that the findings are consistent with those of prior studies, concluding that cannabis inhalation, even long-term, is not positively associated with COPD, lung cancer, or irreversible airway damage, and added that the use of vaporization technology, which heats herbal cannabis to a set temperature below the point of combustion, is associated with a reduced exposure to toxic gases and has been identified as a safe and effective cannabis delivery device in clinical trial settings. In one of the studies cited by Normal, researchers from Great Britain in 2018 said that available literature did identify a link between cannabis inhalation and more frequent cough, sputum production, wheezing, and chronic bronchitis, though they acknowledged that these symptoms largely cease upon quitting. The long-term respiratory effects of cannabis differ from traditional smoking, the researchers wrote. As quoted by Normal, cannabis smoking does not appear to be carcinogenic. Boom.
Booyah.
Boom. That's
Booyah.
big. Yeah.
It's good.
So bizarre,
Like
right?
the first article we read, more research. This article about COPD, I'm sure more research is going to come out of this because that's huge.
So then you have to wonder, like, is maybe cannabis is just a plant. There's no additives in it. Tobacco smoking started as just tobacco leaf. It was dried, right, pulverized, and put into a wrap and smoked. And then it became mass-produced, and additives and all sorts of crazy chemicals
Just
went in
like
there.
our food.
Right, and now there's all these crazy chemicals. If they went back to pure tobacco, I wonder if there'd be some similarity to the lack of carcinogens.
Yeah, I wonder.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. The benefits of using cannabis for sleep disorders. Cannabinoids are being considered for the treatment of individuals with many different types of sleep disorders. Recently, cannabis has been found helpful to patients living with obstructive sleep apnea who now use continuous positive airway pressure. Preclinical studies have demonstrated that combining the agent alamide with THC aids in the stabilization of respiration in stages of sleep. Alamide is a derivative of oleic acid. Man, I forgot the hard articles today. I tell you what, with some of these words, that is derived from olive oil. Alamide accumulates in the cerebral spinal fluid during sleep deprivation and induces sleep when injected into animals. Alamide produces this effect because it resembles anandamide, the endogenous marijuana-like compound in the brain, and activates the same receptors. Dronabinol, which we know about, a synthetic version of Delta-9, lowered the apnea hypnonia index, a diagnostic tool for determining the presence and severity of obstructive sleep apnea. In a clinical study, Due to these promising results in clinical trials, dronabinol is now considered safe for the short-term treatment of obstructive sleep apnea. Then there's nabilone, a synthetic endocannabinoid receptor agonist, was given to patients with I tried to pronounce this word earlier, but we'll try it again. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Sorry. It was a different
You're
word.
right over there.
I'm baked. I took a second hit of that peanut butter breath. And I was looking at
You're
a different.
overthinking
I was looking at a different word, and then I was like, no, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. That's so baked. Peanut butter breath got me going. Disorder reported having nightmares. When compared with placebo treatment, nabiline provided helpful in reducing the frequency of nightmares. A single study investigated the effects of CBD on REM behavioral disorder. This is a sleep disorder in which people, usually males, physically act out vivid dreams that are often unpleasant. Often a sleeper will make violent arm and leg movements that can injure their bed partners. CBD treatment reduced this incidence of these symptoms. Aren't you glad I don't have that disorder?
Yeah.
Beating in my sleep.
Great. Lucky me.
Cannabis may also reduce the symptoms of restless leg syndrome. Yes, that is 100%. Especially late night when my leg used to go shaky sometimes and take a hit and goodbye. The brains of patients with restless leg syndrome may be in what is called a hyperdromanuric state. Too much dopamine is being released inside the basal ganglia. Do you know what the basal ganglia is?
Some part of your brain?
Some part of somewhere. Recent studies have shown that cannabis reduces synthesis of dopamine. Thus, the efficiency of cannabis in patients with restless leg syndrome may be due to its ability to prevent the excessive restless of dopamine and restore normal neural activity in the basal ganglia. An analysis of the literature of these uses of cannabis products as an aid for better sleep quality discovered the sleep improvements were seen in 7 out of 19 randomized studies and in 7 out of 12 uncontrolled trials. Surprisingly, there was no significant difference between the effects of CBD and THC. Cannabis was the most effective in patients with pain-related disorders. Most of the subjects tested reported subjective improvements in sleep quality. Mrs. Weedman could attest to that every night. However, close diagnostic examinations showed no improvements in sleep architecture. I didn't know there was such a thing. Did you?
No.
So when you sleep, you're building houses? Is that how it works?
No.
Oh, okay. One important caveat is that
That's not
cannabis has its greatest sleep promoting effects for those who are occasional users. In contrast, chronic cannabis use can disrupt circadian rhythms and reduce the duration of the deepest phases of slow wave sleep. We've read that before, but we also read that it helps with REM sleep too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did. So
sleep architecture refers to the basic structural organization of normal sleep. So if someone's looking at your your brainwave,
so they're building
patterns,
houses of your brain patterns?
Sure. Just stick with that. That works. Yes.
The reduction in deeper sleep phases may reduce the amount of growth hormones and wound healing hormones produced by the body. Based on the available evidence, cannabinoids can be used as an alternate treatment for various sleep disorders. Obviously, more clinical trials are required in order to determine the optimal dose and duration of treatment. Well, I've been using it for a long time. It helps me sleep every night, unless I take a strain that doesn't really help me go to sleep. And sometimes that happens. So until you find the strains that are good for you to sleep, that help you go to sleep, or some edibles out there to help you sleep, make sure the strains that you journal it, like this strain helped me sleep every night. So, and these 5, because you want to mix it up in a little variety, so you don't want to stick with the same strain all the time. So find like 5 or 6 different strains, especially if you're going to a dispensary. They might not always have that strain. So you want to test a bunch of different ones and see what works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
So can you believe, well, I hear a lot that people don't get high from edibles, and I've been doing some research on that. I'm not going to talk about it on this episode, but there's people out there that don't get high from cannabis.
Yeah.
I've heard that, especially edibles, but I've heard that also with smoking weed. I've met like 5 people in my life that say I don't get high from anything.
And I always think that they just haven't really gotten high. But Apparently, there's some truth
Yeah?
to that.
Tell us about it,
Yeah.
Mrs. Weedman.
So, this is why some people don't get high from cannabis. Cannabis affects everyone differently. Like any other substance, some people may be more or less sensitive to the herb than others. It all depends on your internal body chemistry and genetics. Some early evidence suggests that those with certain medical conditions may experience the effects of cannabis differently. Further, a particular hormone may block the high caused by THC. Here's why some people might not get high from cannabis. Even for individuals without a medical condition, there's still a good reason that you're not reaching that high. In total, there are over 400 different chemical compounds in the cannabis plant. About 100 of these compounds are molecules unique to the cannabis plant called cannabinoids. The primary psychoactive cannabinoid in the plant is called tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. When you consume cannabis, THC enters your bloodstream and connects with special cell receptors called cannabinoid receptors. Thus far, researchers are aware of two distinct cannabinoid receptors named CB1 and CB2. And when THC connects with these receptors, specifically the CB1 receptor in the brain, it causes the classic psychoactive high. But your ability to feel high depends on many different factors. In general, most people will feel high from psychoactive cannabis. However, evidence suggests that the high varies from one person to the next. And, you guessed it, it's completely possible for some individuals to experience no effects from cannabis whatsoever. Some people with certain medical conditions, for example, consume the herb and feel more normal. It's not uncommon to hear people with fibromyalgia or PTSD explain that cannabis gives them energy and makes them feel more sober. There is some theoretical evidence to back up these claims. Neurologist and medical researcher Dr. Ethan Russo thinks that some people may have what is called an endocannabinoid deficiency. Humans naturally produce their own versions of cannabis, called endocannabinoids. When you inhale or eat the psychoactive plant, THC lands on the cell receptors where human endocannabinoids would normally land. By doing so, THC taps into the larger network called the endocannabinoid system. This system is the largest neurotransmitter network in the body, and it controls various key bodily functions, some of which include appetite, sleep, pleasure, pain, mood, motor skills. Russo theorizes that people with certain medical conditions may not produce enough of these endocannabinoids in the first place, specifically those with the following conditions: migraines, fibromyalgia, and IBS. Some mental health conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar disorder may also have some sort of endocannabinoid dysfunction. If this is the case, those with some of these conditions may experience cannabis a bit differently than others. But what if you don't have a medical condition and still can't get high? Well, apart from specific medical conditions, there's another reason why some people may not experience a cannabis high after consuming THC. Research published in 2014 in the journal Science found that a particular hormone may block you from experiencing a cannabis high. The hormone in question is pregnenolone, a naturally occurring hormone in the body. Pregnenolone is thought to protect the brain from cannabis intoxication. Interestingly, you can buy this hormone online and at vitamin supplement stores. People take it to improve mood, ease anxiety, and enhance brain function. Like cannabis, it also is thought to have a slight negative effect on memory and can make you sleepy. In the study, researchers treated rodents with very high levels of THC. They noticed that the rodents began to produce pregnenolone in response, as if the hormone blocked the effects of the THC. In another experiment, the scientists injected the rodents with pregnenolone after treating them with THC. Not only did the injection reduce THC intoxication, but the rodents were less likely to self-administer THC after the fact. When
Wait. Rodents are getting
They
high on
pro-
their own.
Well, they probably give them edibles.
They're out there in,
Yeah,
out there in their
"Well, give me
cage
a
smoking a
joint.
joint.
Can you roll one, man?" When treating human cell lines with the hormone, scientists found similar results. It is entirely possible that some people may be more effective at producing pregnenolone than others, and therefore better able to adjust after consuming THC. So, gotta hope you've got some pregnenolone.
Yeah, right.
Pregnenolone.
It's weird.
Say that a few times. It
Well,
starts to sound fun.
I'm actually really happy you actually got a hard word.
Oh, you wanted me to get tripped up with
No,
more words?
no, not at all. I know you. I heard you practicing it
I
earlier.
practiced.
But you actually got one really long, hard word.
Hey, you got to work on your vocabulary all the time.
Minnesota. The governor, Tim Walz, today signed legalization in the state of Minnesota. That is awesome. The 23rd state to legalize it. Good for you. Good for you, Minnesota. I cannot wait to go back up there and go smoke some weed. DA destroyed $5.7 million of cannabis plants last year, but arrests keep on declining. So they're just destroying farms, people's livelihood, and just letting them go. They're not really getting arrested because people aren't really getting arrested for cannabis anymore. So, yeah, weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
More than half of cannabis consumers in states where weed is legal get their stuff at a store, according to a new release survey. A survey which comes from Frontier Data found that 50.
Okay over
I'm
there?
stoned. 52% of current consumers say their primary source is a brick and mortar dispensary, and only 6% say their primary source is a plug in states where adult use cannabis is legal. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
New Yorkers. Okay, so New York is legal, but the dispensaries aren't opening up fast. I think there's like 10 in the whole state now. I read in a prior article a few episodes ago, there's an abundance of cannabis right now because all the cultivators were growing thinking it was going to be ready to go. So now, because there's an oversupply of cannabis, they're going to allow farmers markets.
Ah.
So that's kind of cool.
That's neat.
I think every state should allow farmers markets.
Mm-hmm.
And, when they do it during the summer and you have people out, cultivation, outdoor growing, I think it'd be great. I want to go sell some of my weed at a farmer's market. And some of Mrs. Weedman's edibles. Maryland prepares for cannabis. They're just about ready in July to go. There was a 44-page document. The Maryland Cannabis Administration will succeed Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission. Those who want to convert the medical cannabis licenses must pay a fee based on the gross revenue of a license and calculated by the administration, so millions of dollars, using the state seed-to-sale tracking system for the calendar year 2022. The Social Equity Partnership Grant Program will promote qualify partnerships between operational cannabis licenses and social equity licenses. The administration will announce a licensing application round at least 60 days before the acceptance of applications. So good for you, Maryland. Let's go. Some blue crab and some weed. That's all you need. Montana's cannabis market closed to out-of-staters as Governor Gianforte signs cannabis bills into law. I think that's pretty cool that you're going to keep it in your state. You're going to let people make money out of it in your state and not let a bunch of big corporations come from all over the place and invade your state and take over all the profits when mom and pop shops could be making money. I like that. I think it's amazing, but what do I know, right? Cannabis cases shroud in secrecy. Michigan's largest cannabis recall concealed in secretive court battle. Doesn't the public have the right to know? Isn't that weird? Doesn't the public have the right to know? Administrative law judge Stephen Goldstein ordered that all hearings be closed to the public and media with no explanation provided. The decision is highly unusual as administrative court hearings involving government agencies are typically open to the public, reported local media. The tribunal has the legal authority to regulate the course of the hearing, said AG spokesperson Danny Weimer. The lack of transparency has raised concerns about hiding vital information from public view. Rick Thompson, executive director of the National Organization of Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, in Michigan, emphasizes the need for accountability and democracy. Without having the proceedings being published, it's possible a lot of things may remain hidden from public view. The Michigan Press Association also questions the decision, highlighting that this case involves consumer protection issues about which the public has a right to know. Michigan calls for public feedback on drug testing reforms also. So, Michigan, man, that big recall you had a long time ago, state representatives taking bribes, just give it back to the caregivers and let them do it because it was good back then. Still good now with the caregivers, but they deserve it all because they were the reason why Michigan is where it's at today. Mm-hmm. Bipartisan lawmakers in Ohio reintroduced cannabis legalization bill as a ballot drive moves forward. There's 95 dispensaries now in Ohio. Just, man, come on. It's time. You've been doing it. You've got to, some phenomenal growers out there, some phenomenal weed being grown out in Ohio. And you just need to make it wreck and get the shit going. You're losing so much money to Michigan and the states around you. So Louisiana House approves cannabis expunsion bill, sending it to the Senate. Let's go. All right, so we talked about that viroid disease that's hitting cannabis farms, the HLVD. We also had a guest on the show, Deep Root Genetics, who came on and talked about it. Rachel, she was phenomenal. Just reading this now, I don't know if it's 100% true or not. This is just an article coming, but they're saying 90%, over 90% of California pot farms plagued by that severe pathogen.
Holy cow!
90%. Scientists believe that it's nearly every pot farm in the state and could be causing billions of dollars in damage to the national weed economy. Hop latent viroid, or HLVD, shrivels pot plants. We've talked about this, but to reduce less weight, less potency. It also destroys just your whole crop can be infected. That we've talked about it. So back in 2019, it was first identified. And now it's infected at least over 90% of the California cannabis grows, according to 2021 estimate. It's spreading globally, and a recent scientific paper declared that the pathogen was the biggest concern for cannabis growers worldwide. It's a very big pest, has been spreading in the cannabis farms for more than a decade, but at first, growers didn't know what was harming their harvest, like we've talked about. HLVD's late-acting symptoms make it pernicious pest for modern cannabis farming. Farmers commonly grow cannabis by cutting small pieces off the plant, frequently called the mother, which is used to propagate hundreds of new baby plants, clones. These mother plants are artificially prevented from growing flowers, which allows them to keep producing offspring, but also delays the symptoms of HLVD. That means a single mother plant infected with it could silently spread the pathogen for months without showing any symptoms of the disease. HLVD was first identified in hop plants, a close relative of cannabis, in the 80s. It's now commonly found in hop farms and can reduce the amount of aromatic compounds produced hops, which are primarily used to flavor beer. So in 2019, HLVD was first detected in cannabis when scientists confirmed the viroid's presence in samples from a Santa Barbara pot farm. But 2021, the viral pathogen had spread to at least 90% of the state's pot farms, according to a 2021 survey that sampled it's not like they sampled 10 plants. 200,000 California cannabis plants were tested, and now the viroid has spread to pot farms across the world, from Massachusetts to Europe. So I'm glad we had Rachel on from Deep Roots to talk about it. We've talked about this a few times. I didn't know it was that big of an issue in California. So, cannabis updates. Combating the illegal market in California, California's Unified Cannabis Enforcement Task Force is targeting the illicit cannabis market, reporting a 43% increase in plant eradication and $84.6 million in seized unlicensed cannabis products. Oof. Michigan considers denying licenses to unpaid cannabis businesses. Delaware budget allocates $2.2 million for recreational cannabis market. And do New Hampshire residents support cannabis legalization. A recent University of New Hampshire Survey Center poll show strong support for adult use cannabis legalization in New Hampshire, with 72% of residents favoring it and 52% strongly supporting it. Let's go. Make that shit legal there, you know? Economics.
Yeah.
What is the basic cannabis? I didn't even think of this.
I know.
What is the basic cannabis economics?
Well, whenever you find reefer madness, a poor grasp of basic cannabis economics is right behind it. For example, when public health busybodies demand THC limits, as if adults choosing high THC strains of cannabis will simply shift their demand to lower THC strains once public health tells them what their preference should be. Most, if not all, government workers lack an understanding of basic economics and therefore basic cannabis economics. So let's clear up some misconceptions. Let's start with a definition from economist Tom Sowell. The first lesson of economics is scarcity. There is never enough of anything to satisfy all of those who want it. The first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau legalized cannabis in 2018, 3 years after pledging to do so. But Justin Trudeau does not understand basic economics, including basic cannabis economics. The trust fund prime minister believes federal budgets balance themselves, that economies grow from the heart outwards. The former drama teacher also thinks inflation isn't a concern for families, which he claims to care about. Justin Trudeau is a textbook example of a politician that places compassion, quote unquote, and what sounds good over what works. He is the type of politician that ignores scarcity. But the problem isn't only in Canada. Connecticut, for example, is trying to enforce THC limits unsuccessfully. Retailers can't sell flower higher than 30% THC, and concentrates are capped at 60%. But convenience stores, gas stations, and CBD-only stores can get around these limits by focusing on Delta-8 THC. Obviously, a politician with an understanding of basic economics would declare THC limits a failure. They would find another way to persuade people to consume lower THC cannabis, maybe by trying a method based on consent rather than coercion. That could be better. Economic studies cause and effect, showing what happens when you do specific things in specific ways. With basic cannabis economics, we should look at the incentives certain decisions create rather than the stated goals. In other words, consequences matter more than the intentions. Canada's public health busybodies say because children are attracted to cannabis edibles, THC limits and other restrictions are justified. Because kids like the packaging. Okay? There we go. It's easy to declare good intentions and blame others for the problems, but by understanding basic cannabis economics, you can see how Health Canada's strict edible rule have led to counterproductive, even disastrous consequences. The Canadian government hasn't changed consumer demand. People still want potent edibles. The consequences have been a continued revenue stream for the illicit edible makers and legal producers focusing on potent cannabis extracts now instead. Health Canada sees the consequences of their actions but refuses to take responsibility. They released a statement decrying copycat cannabis edibles, especially since they appeal to children, ignoring that refined sugar is generally terrible for children too, or that teens are experimenting with quote-unquote safe supply opioids in British Columbia, an issue much more severe than illegal cannabis edibles. And instead of acknowledging that THC limits are counterproductive, they go after potent extracts they consider edibles because they don't know what they're talking about. Health Canada may argue that child-resistant packaging and THC limits are necessary for the children, but at the same time they complain that legalization and privately owned for-profit dispensaries have resulted in higher hospitalizations and ER visits by children who have accidentally consumed cannabis edibles. Wait, that's not over. Many people think economics involve money, finance, and banking, and it does. But at its core, economics, including basic cannabis economics, is about the logic of action. Yes, public health can limit THC and demand child resistant plain packaging, but the trade off incentivizes others to produce high THC edibles and packaging that is pleasant to the eye. Copycat cannabis edibles may appeal to children, but aren't adults allowed to enjoy the marketing of their favorite chips and candy and chocolate brands? Making choices is at the heart of economics, and understanding basic cannabis economics means understanding that you can't change people's preferences by affecting supply. All you do is frustrate consumers and incentivize black markets. Public health busybodies wonder why some people don't want to listen to them, but enforcing these opinions through government laws is one step too far. It ignores basic cannabis economics and reduces individual adults to an infantile state. It doesn't work. It's interesting because I have never thought of economics in that way. I think money, finance, banking. But yes, logic of action and consequence. That's all the bigger picture of economics.
Yeah. And Canada's cannabis edible laws are stupid.
Ridiculous.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Can't go over 10 milligrams in a package. They waste so much packaging. I understand the whole like not having like markings of stuff on there. You just got to be straight color and stuff like that. But 10 milligrams, you know how much frigging waste you do when you just sell
like
100
each
milligrams?
edible is in its own package.
Yes.
And each
individually
package is decorated with
plain
logos.
color. Just plain color with maybe a little small company's logo on it, and that's it. Yeah.
But they have to brand the packaging.
Yes. But you can't you can't brand it with a bunch of different stuff on there.
Right, because it can't look like Skittles or some regular packaging.
It's just stupid.
It's silly.
But the whole thing is, if only 10 milligrams, you can go up to like 2 individual 5 pieces or 1 10 milligram piece is just so stupid. Doesn't make any sense to me. International news, more international news from the Historic Center of Disneyland. Cannabis and absinthe shops on every corner. This is not the United States, though.
Oh.
Amongst the historical agriculture and cobblestone streets, cannabis absinthe shops dot every corner in Prague. Although a business in Prague, one district has to go through 2 rounds of selection procedures, the number of cannabis shops with the distinctive green cross signs are growing. The city council tries to favor entrepreneurs who can successfully promote their services and products, but the locals complain. Tenants are therefore obliged to comply with the city council's manual for the appearance and signage of the establishments. Others are dealt with the state's authorities, preservationists, and trade licensing offices. But these shops are everywhere in Prague, and it's all around next to absinthe shops. So you go smoke some weed, go do a shot of absinthe, and see some green fairies. So, but I'd like to go to Prague one day.
Yeah.
So drink some really good beer, have some absinthe, and smoke some good weed. Portuguese authorities seized millions of weed products over the last 4 years. Crazy. Thai's new parliament sets sights on cannabis control. Churches object to Athens medical cannabis ordinance. And in Philippines, officers raid cannabis plantations. In Canada, if you haven't paid your taxes for cannabis, it has ballooned to almost $200 million in unpaid taxes. The amount of unpaid federal excise taxes owed by Canada's cash-strapped licensed cannabis producers more than tripled in the last fiscal year. Earlier, as companies complain they're getting buried by government fees and levies. Of course. And I think in Canada, there's government, I don't know if this is all of Canada, but there's government-owned dispensaries. I wonder if they're paying their taxes. I wonder if the government-owned dispensaries are paying their taxes.
I don't know.
Something to look into. Dun, dun, dun. This is a sad story.
It is.
And this is Ava Berry, daughter of a medicinal cannabis campaigner, dies at age 13.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mrs. Weedman. Take this
Yeah.
one.
The death has occurred of Ava Berry, whose mother, Vera Toomey, fought a lengthy campaign to secure her access to medicinal cannabis to treat a rare form of epilepsy, which caused her to have daily seizures. The 13-year-old, who had Dravet system, died peacefully in a Cork, Ireland hospital on Friday, surrounded by her family. She had been hospitalized following a recent illness. In 2017, the then Minister for Health, Simon Harris, granted a license for the use of medicinal cannabis by Ava. Ms. Toomey had walked from Cork to Leinster House in Dublin on 2 occasions to highlight her daughter's plight. Her condition was so serious that it had previously led to cardiac arrest and an 8-day coma. Ms. Toomey gave numerous media interviews over a 3-year period in which she said she was so desperate to gain access to THC medicines to prevent her daughter's severe epilepsy episodes. She also assisted other parents in similar positions. A book called For Ava was published by Toomey in 2019. In it, she wrote about the struggles her family experienced when Ava was seriously ill. She said they ran out of options to treat Dravet syndrome and that there was nothing there but Google, as they desperately searched for a solution to the dire circumstances their daughter was in. Prior to obtaining medicinal cannabis, Ava could have up to 23 seizures in the space of a day, which Ms. Toomey described as terrifying experiences, and she never knew if her daughter would come out of them intact. Her fear was that Ava would end up brain damaged or could die. Ambulances were called so regularly that Ava's family stopped having to provide their address when calling, Ms. Toomey said. Prior to securing Ava access to medicinal cannabis, Ms. Toomey said her life was one of constant stress, pain, and anxiety. Every waking moment was consumed by it. I operated under constant fear and tension, waiting for the next seizure. It was coming, though you never knew when. But as sure as day, it was coming, she said. Ava was having several seizures, almost every day, with over 20 on a bad day. They may have been varied in extent and severity, but each one was an agonizing experience full of pain and terror. In 2017, Ms. Toomey went to Spain to get a prescription from a consultant for medicinal cannabis for Ava. Customs officials confiscated the THC cannabis oil from Ms. Toomey after questioning her for an hour after she got off a flight from Barcelona. She then went to live in The Hague in the Netherlands, where she again received a prescription for the drug for Ava. At that time, Ms. Toomey said that it was a relief to finally gain consistent access to the medication, even if she had to go overseas. It is freedom for us. We have a medicine that works. We can speak openly and honestly about Ava having the THC form of cannabis. We don't have to hide in the shadows, she said. Ms. Toomey was asked to speak in the House of Commons in London in 2019 about the benefits of alternative medicine in treating conditions such as severe epilepsy. Ava is survived by her parents Vera and Paul and her siblings Michael, Sophia, and Elvira May. It's
so sad.
It is.
So sad.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
Well, you know, brother, I'm coming at you, Mean Gene, with some vitamins. To all my Hulkamaniacs out there, now I'm going to start selling some CBD, some THC, and some mushrooms, because I'm the Hulkster, and all you Hulkamaniacs are going to be running wild with my brand. Another celebrity, another wrestler. I don't know who I'd like better, though. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan's.
And
I don't think
cannabis companies, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, brands.
Yeah.
And I don't think I want to try either one of them. Because what do they know about cannabis? Even though I did hear an interview with Ric Flair, and, you know, he was like, I'm making more money with cannabis now than I ever did in wrestling. Good for you. But
is that what it's about?
you know, but he I do have to admit, he uses cannabis on the regular. Got him off Xanax.
That's good.
Helps him sleep. Helps him stay his anxiety. He has very bad anxiety. So he was a user. Once he got off the Xanax and stuff like that. So I understand. Hulk Hogan, the legendary wrestler, is diving into the world of CBD, THC, and mushrooms with the launch of his own brand, teaming up with a company that's behind Mike Tyson's company and Ric Flair, the Drip Cannabis lines. Hogan aims to share his life experience with cannabis. At 69 years old, Hulk credits CBD and THC for making him feel better than ever. Having undergone multiple surgeries and dealing with constant pain from injuries, he sought alternatives with prescription drugs no longer provided relief. Hogan turned to CBD and witnessed a significant improvement in the overall well-being. I feel better than ever at 69. I feel like I'm 25 again. Man, I don't know about that, Hogan. Hogan expressed during an interview with TMZ, the sports show, he mentioned how CBD helped with sleep, inflammation, and joint pain, surpassing the efficiency of traditional pain relievers like Tylenol, Advil, and Aleve. Partnering with this company, Hogan's new venture will not only focus on CBD and THC products, but also incorporate functional mushrooms. The brand aims to provide a safe and holistic approach to health and wellness, offering natural alternatives to conventional medicines. I grew up being a big fan of wrestling. I don't really watch it anymore, but I did from the time I think I was like 6 to like 26. I was maybe 30. Pretty deep in the wrestling. I really liked it. And our son watched it with me and my dad, so it was a thing we used to do. I liked Hulk Hogan. Not a big fan. I was more of a I always liked the bad guys a little bit better. But good for him. You know, it's just another celebrity brand though. You know, it's a name gonna sell a lot of product. Just like Ric Flair's doing, just like Mike Tyson's doing, and all the other celebrity brands out there. You know, yes, it's helped them. I'm glad it has. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't. I really don't know how all these celebrities just getting in the cannabis game when there's people like mom and pops trying to get into it and they can't even get into it.
Like they've already made their millions. Do they
or
really
spent
need
spent all their millions
or spent them and now they need a retirement plan?
Yeah, but then you get people like us that have been trying to get in the cannabis game for a long time and can't even get looked at.
Right.
You know, and there's I'm not even just talking about us. There's hundreds of families, hundreds of families,
right,
and people that want to get in and can't because they don't have a name or they don't have the money or they don't have somebody backing them because that person has a big name and a big Instagram following of probably 5, 10, 15 million people. Of course, I want to back you up because then all your followers, if I get 1 million of your 20 million followers to buy on a weekly basis, I'm a multimillionaire.
Right.
So I don't know how I feel about it because there's people like us that just want to make a good living and is out there and be able to enjoy some life and not be foolish.
And have really good product.
And
obviously.
have fucking really great product. Not just good product. We want to make great product. And a reliable brand. You know? So I don't know. It kind of frustrates me at times. You know, I'm just speaking honest, I guess. It frustrates me to see, you know, and there's people we know that have been trying to get in the cannabis industry for years. And they can't even get looked at. So, I don't know. I just... for all you out there that jump on the bandwagon of all the celebrity brands, I'm not saying that they're bad brands. They're making shit product. I'm sure they're wonderful as I roll my eyes in the back of my head. I just don't know how I feel about it. And probably if someone would ask me, oh, if Hulk Hogan came to you and said he wants to pay you to rep his brand on your podcast, would you do it? I don't know. Probably not. Because I don't know if I believe in his brand. Oh, if he offered you $1 million, my integrity is a lot bigger than $1 million right now. I'd rather make $1 million on my own way, do it myself, and Mrs. Weedman gives me the look like, yeah, sure.
No, it's not. Yeah, sure. It's I don't want to kibosh somebody else's efforts, and just because it doesn't fit into our agenda. But I don't know. I mean, if we're all trying to succeed and we can do it together, that's the big picture. So if somebody big like that was willing to come on and be a commercial on your show or come on and talk on your show, hey, why would you turn down an opportunity? Because that could be a game changer.
It could be a game changer. I do agree. It'd be very hard for me though, because
I know. I get like fundamentally because
all these stars' names help cannabis.
Right.
It helps the stigma.
Break the stigma.
Yes.
Right.
I'm not going to take away from that. It just like you come from like somebody like us that have been trying to where someone can just get in because of a name.
Right. Because they've got cash and they're famous.
He's been wrestling forever. I get it. It's just frustrating.
I get you.
Yeah,
I get
you
it.
feel me?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just frustrating.
I'm not arguing. I totally get it.
I just don't know how I would feel if a star came to our show and said, "Hey, I'd give you if you rep my brand." I don't know. I don't know if I would do it or not.
Right.
It'd be very hard to say. I will admit this. It would be very hard to say no.
Because it's opportunity.
Opportunity.
But then you have to think about your fundamental beliefs and does it fit into what you're trying to accomplish?
Right.
Right.
Is it an easy way out from building a brand from the bottom up than building a brand from the top down?
Some people might call you a sellout.
Of course. But everybody sells out eventually.
I mean, yes, we all have said that about somebody, but really that's what most people are trying to achieve is a sellout so that they can enjoy their life.
Right. It's true.
Right.
It's true. It's hard though to I don't know where if I offered you $1 million to rep my brand, would you do it? Probably. But it'd be very hard. I'd have to think about it because I'd have to really do the research if I want to be a part of that brand or not.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah. If you want to be tied to those people.
Right. Because once you do it, you're in.
Right.
You can't.
And then if they make bad choices, it reflects on you.
So to try to keep an honest business, Mrs. Weedman has been keeping Mr. Weedman honest for a long time.
I try.
You try.
I try.
Because sometimes I get led the wrong way. I always get somebody coming back in my life going, "Hey, you want to? I can get you some mushroom bars. You want to go out there and sell some?" Or, "Hey, I got some pounds of
Mr. Weedman." That's me. I'm like the little
the angel on one shoulder.
Yeah. He doesn't need a little devil on the shoulder.
So, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but it would be. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say. It really is. It really is. I don't.
Okay, well, it's not happening.
No, I'm just saying.
But if it did,
because everyone's out there
cross
going,
that bridge when we get there.
Right. It would hurt though if you went in on something.
You're not gonna let this go.
No, because it just frustrates me. And I'm watching all these fucking stars just dead. I don't even know if
everybody's doing. Well, how about like the people who have been traditional market forever and they got granted a license, and who in their right mind can afford to get into the legal cannabis space right now? Not much of anybody. And so all of these people who should have cannabis brands and guys like Hulk Hogan should say, you know what? My name doesn't need to be out there. How about I sponsor you?
Right.
And how about I take you under my wing and we're both going to make some money on this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to open the doors for you and get you rolling, and I'm going to, fund you. I'm going to give you some capital, and we're going to make this right, and I'm going to put the right people in with you so you know how to manage, the back end of things. Maybe you already know how to do all that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just need leverage. And money is leverage in this business.
Yes,
and
it is.
Maybe that's what some of these celebrities need to do. Get your fat face. I don't mean fat faces, but I'm like being a jerk. Get your faces out. We've seen your face enough. We know who you are.
Right. Go
incognito and just help people out. Do something for people who really should be in this space working. And you'll still get your little, residual income, and you can have your retirement plan, and the moms and pops who have been running cannabis for the last 20 years in most markets can finally get a legitimate business. There's
well
mine.
Said.
There's mine. There's my spiel.
We're going to end it on that.
Yeah.
Because that was great. The little angel on my shoulder going, "Don't sell it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Think about the big picture."
Always. So, Mrs. Weedman, that was a great ending. I'm not even going to ask you if you got anything else to say.
I got nothing to say. I just had
Perfect.
my little soapbox moment.
You did. I'm going to apologize to everybody for some of those articles. I was really baked, so I apologize. So if you're like rolling your
But
head
hey,
around.
We bring this up every once in a while.
Yeah.
We intentionally smoke at the beginning of the show because we're trying to stomp the stigma. Like, hey, yeah, look, we both have day jobs and we both are trying to build businesses and we have a podcast and we hustle. We have a lot going on in our lives, and we're gonna smoke weed wherever we can within those days of our life, right? However it fits into our work day or our play day or our podcast day, we're gonna frickin' smoke. And we smoke as part of the show to show you that, yeah, sometimes we get a little goofy, or sometimes we get off on tangents because we're high or we're baked or we can't pronounce words because we can't see straight, quite frankly. But we can still function and we can still be productive members of society
Every day.
And people need to understand that.
Yes.
So that's why we smoke as part of the show.
Yes, but also because we want
just
to.
freaking love it.
Yeah, we love it. So,
Could you pass me the bowl, please?
yes, I will.
Thanks.
I guess you had more to say.
I guess I had more. I've been quiet over here tonight. I'm having an allergy day.
Very bad allergy
Can't
day you're
see
having.
so good
I know,
today.
eyes have been watering. So, all right, I guess you're done.
Pass me the bowl.
I will. Here you go.
Thanks. I'm done. I'm going to smoke now.
There you go. Hey, everybody out there in the world, we love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for just being a part of us, and we like being a part of you and having fun. We love you out there. Appreciate it. Just everyone needs to be kind to one another, love one another, give everybody a hug, and smoke some big fat doinks with one another. Life would be great. As Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome, long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.